for the
Peace and Pan-Africanism, peace and Pan-Africanism. Good Garvey Day to all my brothers and sisters. Peace and Pan-Africanism, peace and Pan-Africanism. Good Garvey Day to all my brothers and sisters. This is the Prince of Pan-Africanism. I'm not going to keep you too long. If you missed the live stream earlier, you want to go over to Facebook and watch it. I did a seminar this morning analyzing Joe Biden's White House executive order for educational equity, excellence, and economic opportunity for Black Americans, which he signed yesterday, October the 19th. So if you haven't had a chance to see my seminar on Facebook, Dr. Umar Ifatunde on Facebook, Dr. Umar Ifatunde, make sure you go over to Dr. Umar Ifatunde and watch the 1 hour, 45-minute seminar breaking down brand new White House executive order by your president, Joe Biden, on education and economics for Africans. That's on Facebook. I didn't do it on Instagram because, as you know, they like to mute me after 15 minutes on Instagram. So I'm going to have to start doing all of my lengthy seminars on Facebook until I find someone to build me a Dr. Umar video website where you can pay per view all my new content. I'm looking for someone who can build me the Dr. Umar video website where you can pay per view all my new content. We have an important subject tonight, but it's not a long subject. We have an important subject tonight, but it's not a long one. Before I get into it, I want to let my Atlanta Africans know, and I want to let my Georgia Africans know that Atlanta has been added to my schedule. The Prince of Pan-Africanism will be back in Atlanta Friday, November the 5th. Friday, November the 5th, 6 p.m. Amendola Griot Afrocentric Museum. Free lecture followed by book signing. Free lecture. I'm going to deal with germs, jabs, and genocide, the global African depopulation agenda. Germs, jabs, and genocide, the global African depopulation agenda in Atlanta, Friday, November the 5th, almost 1 year to the date of my last visit. My last visit was November the 19th of 2020. This visit in Atlanta will be November the 5th. Free, free, free. There will be an African marketplace. Vendors, if you need the information, I'll give it to you right now. If you want to vend in Atlanta on Friday, November the 5th at Dr. Umar's free lecture. If you want to vend in Atlanta on Friday, November the 5th at Dr. Umar's free lecture, you want to call 678-748-9652. Sister Anissa will take care of it. 678-748-9652 if you want to vend in Atlanta on Friday, November the 5th. Thursday, November the 4th, I'm in Chattanooga, Tennessee. Thursday, November the 4th at 1403 Tunnel Boulevard, 2 to 8. 1403 Tunnel Boulevard, 2 to 8, Chattanooga, Thursday, November the 4th. This Saturday, Allentown, Pennsylvania, Youth Explosion, 400 East Mountain Road. This Saturday, October the 23rd, bring your girls and boys in middle school and high school. Bring the girls and boys in middle school and high school this Saturday, Allentown, PA, 400 East Mountain Road. Free, free, free. Everlasting Life Cafe, Capitol Heights, Maryland, on Wednesday, November the 10th. Everlasting Life Black-owned Vegan Soul Cafe, Capitol Heights, Maryland, Wednesday, November the 10th. You do need tickets. Call Everlasting Life Cafe. Okay? Call Everlasting Life Cafe. 301-324-6900. 301-324-6900. There's also a website for the tickets. Hold on. There's also a website for the tickets for Everlasting Life. elifepresents.com. The letter E, the word life, presents.com. elifepresents.com for your tickets for Dr. Umar lecture in Capitol Heights, Maryland at the Everlasting Life Cafe on Wednesday, November the 10th. Thursday, November the 11th, we are in Nat Turner Land. Thursday, November the 11th, we are in Nat Turner Land. We got a bunch of rainbows on here. Sorry, fellas. I don't belong to the community. Sorry. Good luck with your recruiting efforts. Okay? It's all right. I can handle it. All right? We could definitely take care of this right here. We got the Rainbow Gang. Come on in. No problem, no problem, no problem, no problem. Brothers and sisters, if you want to go to the Nat Turner Land celebration, the 190th memorial of Nat Turner's execution, that will be in Nat Turner Land on Thursday, November the 11th. Come through natturnerlibrary.com. Come through natturnerlibrary.com. Come through natturnerlibrary.com. Friday, November the 12th, Hampton Roads, 7 Cities. Friday, November the 12th, Hampton Roads, 7 Cities. Friday, November the 12th, we will be at the Kroc Center in Norfolk, Virginia. Friday, November the 12th, we will be at the Kroc Center, Norfolk, Virginia, 4 p.m. to 8 p.m. And then Sunday, November the 14th, Great Blacks in Wax Museum. Sunday, November the 14th, Great Blacks in Wax Museum. Sunday, November the 14th, from 2 until 8, National Great Blacks in Wax Museum free lecture and book signing, brothers and sisters. Free lecture and book signing. All right. Margate, South Florida, December the 4th. Minneapolis, Minnesota, Dr. King's birthday, January 15th. Scottsdale, Arizona, January the 17th. Children are always invited. You need tickets for Capitol Heights. You need tickets for Capitol Heights. You need tickets for Margate, South Florida. If you need the flyer for any of the events, feel free to text message me, 215-989-9858, 215-989-9858. I am heterosexual and happy to be, by the way, and very happy to be. Now, with that being said, brothers and sisters, here's what I want to talk about tonight. First, let me remind everybody to hit the Cash App, $FDMG School. Hit the Cash App, $FDMG School. Hit the PayPal, paypal.me/FDMG Academy. Hit the PayPal, paypal.me/FDMG Academy. Somebody sent me an article tonight. Somebody sent me an article tonight. And it is called, so on NPR, Pediatricians say the mental health crisis among kids has become a national emergency. This is today, October the 20th of 2021. October the 20th of 2021. Pediatricians say the mental health crisis among children has become a national emergency. Okay? We're going to talk about this. I'm going to read the article and we're going to talk about this. Okay? I'm going to read the article and we're going to talk about this. And the reason why we're going to talk about this is I know a lot of people who have lost loved ones to suicide. I know a lot of people who have lost adults to suicide. I know a lot of people who have lost children to suicide. Suicide is the second leading cause of death of black boys in the United States. Suicide is the second leading cause of death of black boys in the United States. And it is the third leading cause of death of black men. And it is the third leading cause of death for black men. Let's read the article. A coalition of the nation's leading experts in pediatric health has issued an urgent warning declaring the mental health crisis among children so dire that it has become a national emergency. The declaration was penned by the American Academy of Pediatrics, the Children's Hospital Association, and the American Academy of Child and Adolescent Psychiatry, which together represent more than 77,000 physicians and 200 children's hospitals. In a letter released Tuesday, the group says that rates of childhood mental health concerns were already steadily rising over the past decade, but the coronavirus pandemic, as well as the issue of racial inequality, they write, has exacerbated the challenges. This worsening crisis in child and adolescent mental health is inextricably tied to the stress brought on by COVID-19 and the ongoing struggle for racial justice, and represents an acceleration of trends observed prior to 2020. The declaration from the pediatric group says, when it comes to suicide in particular, the group points to data showing that by 2018, suicide was the second leading cause of death for people between the ages of 10 and 24. Let me say that again. Suicide is the second leading cause of death for children aged 10 to 24. Teenage girls have emerged particularly at risk from February to March of 2021. From February to March of 2021, emergency department visits for suspected suicide attempts were up 51% for girls aged 12 to 17 compared with the same period in 2019. Overall, the data shows that in 2020, the percentage of emergency department visits for mental health emergencies rose by 24% for children between the age of 5 and 11 and 31% for those 12 to 17 compared with 2019. Young people have endured so much throughout this pandemic, and while much of the attention is placed on the physical health consequences, we cannot overlook the escalating mental health crisis facing our patients. The crisis affects children of color even more. The crisis affects children of color even more. The declaration from the pediatric groups notes that the disruptions children and families have experienced during the pandemic have disproportionately affected children of color. A recent study in the Journal of Pediatrics showed that 140,000 children have lost a parent or grandparent caregiver to COVID-19. The majority of those children were children of color. Let me read that again. Let me read that again. Let me read that again. A recent study in the Journal of Pediatrics showed that 140,000 children have lost a parent or grandparent caregiver to COVID-19. A majority of those children were children of color. The study showed, compared to white children, Native American children were 4.5 times more likely to have lost a primary caregiver. Black children were 2.4 times as likely to lose a primary caregiver, and Hispanic children twice as likely. We are caring for young people with soaring rates of depression, anxiety, trauma, loneliness, suicidality that will have lasting impacts on them. Let's say that again. Depression, anxiety, trauma, loneliness, and suicidality that will have lasting impacts. Their families, their communities, and our future. Pediatric leaders are urging policymakers to invest in telemedicine and mental health in school. The declaration calls for policymakers on the local and federal levels to fund and improve mental health care for children when it comes to screening, diagnosing, and treatment. Access to telemedicine and mental health care in school should be a priority. The group wants to address the challenge of children experiencing a shortage of beds in emergency care. The Biden administration announced in August plans to invest $85 million in funding mental health awareness training and treatment. So, that came out today. Here's what I want to say to the American African community. And I want all of the African family around the world to hear me. Here's what I want to say to the American African community. And I want all Africans throughout the diaspora to hear me. Suicide is a big problem. It is a silent killer. The reason we don't talk about it is most people do not advertise or broadcast the fact that someone they care about took their own life. It is shameful. It is hurtful. It causes a lot of guilt in the survivors, and we tend to push it under the rug. The only thing we push under the rug more than suicide is child sex abuse. Child sex abuse is the hidden crime in Black America, number one, and suicide is the hidden crime in Black America, number two. Like I said, I get phone calls all the time, text messages, emails, and inboxes from Africans, not just in America, but around the world, but particularly in the United States, who are losing their young people. We got elementary school children taking their life, middle school children taking their life. I remember when I was a school psychologist for the school district of Philadelphia, we had 3 young men commit suicide the same school year at the same school. 3 different young men, all black boys, took their life during the same school year, and they all attended the same school, but those cases were not related. Suicide is a big problem. Now, with that being said, please be careful of trying to address suicide exclusively with medication. The Mental Health Establishment of America wants to brainwash black parents into putting your children on drugs. I'm telling you now, and if you don't believe me, please do your own research. The drugs that they give our children to deal with depression, the drugs that they give our children to deal with anxiety can lead to an increase in the very same problems they are supposed to treat. Zoloft, Paxil, and other antidepressants and other anti-anxiety medications can increase suicidal thinking. Yes, they can. If you don't believe me, do your own research. Go to the website of the drug companies. Do not let the mental health system brainwash you into putting your children on drugs as a solution to suicidality. Now, I will say this. If the child poses an imminent risk to their safety or someone else, by all means, give them the medication to prevent the suicide. Give them the medication to prevent the suicide. But you must get them therapy from a culturally competent, African-centered psychologist, counselor, social worker. Some psychiatrists, but you have to be careful with psychiatrists because they tend to push medication over therapy. You don't want to push medication over therapy because the drugs do not solve problems, brothers and sisters. Drugs do not solve problems. So if you give your child a drug in order to deal with depression and anxiety, they're going to need to be on the drugs, brothers and sisters, for most of their life because you are not addressing the problems, brothers and sisters. All you doing is tackling the symptoms by giving them medication. Okay, we have, I'm going to ignore them, but we got the Rainbow Gang is in here trying to infiltrate the chat. So we're just going to ignore them. We already know that they are a mentally challenged population. We already know that. So we're just going to ignore that. But anyway, brothers and sisters, anyway, get them a therapist. Do not depend on drugs. If you need to give them medication initially, if you need to give them medication initially to get the symptoms under control, that's perfectly fine. But you need to make sure the child is getting some therapy, brothers and sisters. Now, for my religious people, for my religious Africans, there are some excellent pastoral counselors. There are some excellent imams in the Sunni Orthodox Masjid who provide excellent Islamic-based or excellent Christian-based or excellent Hebrew-based or excellent Jehovah Witness-based or Methodist-based or AME-based therapy. However, excuse me, I need pastors and imams to understand you are not Jesus Christ. You are not Moses. You are not Muhammad. You are not Jesus Christ. You are not Moses, and you are not Muhammad. The reason I am saying that, brothers and sisters, is some pastoral counselors and Islamic counselors think that the Bible or the Quran is always enough to address serious mental illness. Let me say this again. Not all, not most, but there are a lot of Christian pastors and Muslim imams who do a good counseling job, and they don't recognize that there's limits to their expertise and that there can be limits to the Islamic approach or the Christian approach to dealing with serious mental illness. Please do not do that. Okay? Pastor, imam, it has nothing to do with your faith in God. It has to do with your competency as a mental health professional. And I need you to be able to refer out. I need you to be able to refer out to an experienced, licensed psychologist, counselor, social worker, psychiatrist in order to address real serious mental health issues. I can't overstate this enough. In addition to that, Black parents, please do not interpret your child's depression, anxiety, or suicidality as indicative of the fact that you have not been practicing your religion enough. A lot of religious parents will try to sweep it under the rug, chalk it up to the fact that your child ain't been praying enough, studying the Bible enough, studying the Quran enough, hanging out with Muslim kids or Christian kids enough. I need you to understand that's not it. That it's not always about that. It's religion has very little to do with suicidality, except when you try to force it down your child's throat to the point where you deny them the right to be a normal kid. And then that's when a lot of religious children will attempt suicide or begin to have suicidal ideation. So religious parents, please don't turn a blind eye to suicidality on behalf of your children, thinking that it means that your family isn't practicing their religion well enough. Okay? That has nothing to do with it. Religion has nothing to do with it. If that child is suicidal or anxious, please get them some professional help. Now, for all American African parents, please don't try to play psychiatrist or psychologist. Please don't try to play psychiatrist or psychologist. And what I mean by that is, I've heard plenty of black parents tell me my son would never take his own life. My daughter would never hurt herself. She's just angry. He's just sad. He's just playing around. She's just having a temper tantrum. I'm here to tell you, I got more than 20 years in mental health. I'm a doctor of clinical psychology. I am a certified school psychologist. I have been both a child therapist and a family therapist. And I'm here to tell you, you do not know the inner workings of your child's mind. Nobody can tell if a child is suicidal or not. Nobody can tell if they are serious about it or not. Please don't try to be the therapist. Please don't try to be the therapist. If your child threatens suicide, and for young children, a picture is just as good as a confession. In young children, a picture is just as good as a confession. In young children, a picture is just as good as a confession. If your 4-year-old or 5-year-old or 6-year-old draws a picture of a rope around their neck or a rope around somebody else's neck, okay, or blood or gun or knife or pills, if a young child draws a very disturbing picture, you can take it to the bank that that is a commission, a confession that they are dealing with some mental health issues. Do not play around with your children. Do not play around with your children, brothers and sisters. Do not do that. Do not do that. And young children, they won't tell you they're thinking about hurting themselves. They will draw it. They will draw it or they will write about it. Please be careful. If your child or a child you cares about ever threatens suicidality, take them to the nearest hospital emergency room or mental health crisis center in your town. Big cities have mental health crisis centers. Big cities have mental health crisis centers. But even if you can't get them to a mental health crisis center, you could take them to any hospital emergency room. Every hospital has an on-call psychiatrist. Every hospital has an on-call psychiatrist. Every hospital has an on-call psychiatrist. They call them into the hospital to do emergency suicide assessments with our children. Please be careful. Get them to the hospital. Do not assume they are playing around. I tell parents all the time. I tell teachers all the time. I'm a psychologist. I am not a psychic. I'm a psychologist. I am not a psychic. I am a psychologist. I am not a psychic. I cannot read a child's mind, but I can evaluate what they say and do. I cannot read a child's mind, but I can evaluate what they say or do. I cannot read a child's mind, but I can evaluate what they say or do. Please don't think you're so spiritual that you know that your child will or will not attempt suicide. Take them to the hospital. Take them to the crisis center, because it only takes one time. It only takes one time for you to make a wrong decision, because there's no coming back from death. There's no coming back from death. It only takes one time for you to make a wrong decision about your child. There's no coming back from death. Now, there's 3 questions you can ask a child. You're still taking them to the hospital. You're still taking them to the crisis center. You are not a psychiatrist or psychologist. You are not equipped to do a suicide assessment. Take them to the crisis center, take them to the hospital. But what you can do on your way to the hospital, on your way to the crisis center, you can ask the child, how long have you been having these thoughts? Do you have a plan of action to take your life? Have you ever attempted to take your life before? How long have you been having these thoughts? And can you tell me specifically what kind of thoughts you are having? Do you have a plan as to how you're going to carry out your suicide? And have you ever attempted suicide before? And have you ever attempted suicide before? If that child says they've had these thoughts before, if that child says they have a plan to hurt themselves, if that child says they have attempted suicide before, I'm telling you, you have a serious situation on your hands. Even if they don't say it, I want you to understand that you have a serious situation on your hands. Remember this. Young children, please remember this. Young children, many of them have not yet grasped the concept of object permanence. In psychology class, remember the conversation about object permanence? What is object permanence in young children? What is object permanence in young children? I'll give you an example. I have a red, black, and green copper bracelet that I got from a brother in Boston, Massachusetts. Shout out to Black Boston. Shout out to Black Boston. Shout out to Black Boston. So I have this copper bracelet. If I'm playing with a young child, and I show them the bracelet, they see the bracelet. But if I put it behind my back, they no longer see the bracelet. Now you see it, now you don't. If a child has not yet grasped the concept of object permanence, they will think that when I put this behind my back, it no longer exists. Now, the older a child gets, they understand object permanence, that even though it's out of sight, it still exists somewhere in space and time. Why am I bringing up object permanence in suicide? Why am I bringing up object permanence in suicide? The reason I'm bringing this up is young children don't understand, and many teenagers don't understand, that when you kill yourself, you don't come back. A lot of children have trouble understanding the permanence of death. They don't get it. They watch cartoons where the superhero dies but is brought back to life. They watch cartoons where the superhero dies but is brought back to life. Young children don't understand object permanence. They think out of sight means it doesn't exist. And that fallacy carries over to their understanding of life. That's why you have to make sure your children understand. That's why you have to make sure your children understand that if you die, you don't come back. Also, African parents. See, I'm going to have a conference at the Frederick Douglass and Marcus Garvey Academy for the Black Rainbow Nation. I'm going to have a conference for the Black Rainbow Nation, but let me say this to the African rainbows. I'm not going to fault you for this, because every rainbow I see posted on my feed happens to belong to the spoiled mayonnaise community. African rainbows, I'm not going to put this on you. African rainbows, I'm not going to put this on you. Every rainbow I see in the comments is a member of the mayonnaise community. And it's so many of them posting that I think they decided to bum rush my live tonight. So let me say this to the mayonnaise nation. Let me say this to the genetically deficient, melanin recessive, Neanderthals on my chat. I would gladly appreciate it, okay, if you damn white mice would stop jumping on my live and find something else to do. I'm sure there's a satanic ritual you should be attending, some sort of rainbow booty bump, secret society group. I'm sure there's something else you could be doing better with your time, mayonnaise, than bum rushing my feed. Now, with that being said, okay, I guess the mayonnaise, they got the mayonnaise munchies. They got the mayo munchies. They got the mayo munchies. See, I don't bother y'all. My lives are for Africans. I keep telling the mayonnaise militia. There you go. The mayonnaise militia is trying to bum rush my life. The mayonnaise militia is trying to bum rush my life. The rainbow mayonnaise militia, not just the man, but the rainbow mayonnaise militia. These narcissistic, abnormal, dysfunctional, psychopathic wildebeests, these abnormal, dysfunctional, genetically recessive, melanin deficient wildebeests think they have a right to infiltrate the lives of African people whose opinions they don't agree with. And I'm not even talking politics. I'm trying to educate my community about suicide. I'm trying to educate my community about suicide, and I got the whole rainbow mayonnaise militia infiltrating my damn chat. But let me get back. Let me get back on topic. Thank God I am an African. I have nothing against nobody, but thank God I am an African. I thank God for my nappy hair. I thank God for my black nose, my black lips, my black skin. I thank God for my ancestors. I thank God that I am a descendant of Africa. I thank God that I never had to enslave another people in order to get a jump start on my own civilization. I thank God that I never had to eat the flesh of another human being in order to survive. I thank God that I can go out into the sunlight and not have to worry about catching skin cancer. I thank God for being an original human. Now, getting back to the suicidality in our children. Getting back to the suicidality in our children. Getting back to the suicidality in our children. Parents, please be mindful of suicide pacts that children make with their friends. Please be mindful of suicide pacts that children make with their friends. There is a such thing in child psychology known as a suicide pact. If your daughter's best friend, God forbid, take her own life. If your daughter's best friend, God forbid, takes her own life, your daughter might feel obligated to do the same thing. If your son's best friend takes his own life, your son might be obligated to do the same thing. And sometimes they coordinate the suicides where they say, we're going to kill ourselves at 8 o'clock on Friday or 2 o'clock on Sunday. If you are the parent of a child who had a friend or cousin who they were close with who took their life, you must remain vigilant in supervising that child. You must remain vigilant in supervising that child. Also, what do we know? Boys and men attempt suicide by way of more violent means. Women attempt suicide through more passive means. Boys attempt suicide through more violent means. Girls attempt suicide through more passive means. Girls like to overdose on pills and slit their wrists. Girls like to overdose on pills and slit their wrists. Check the medicine cabinet, check your daughter's wrists. Check the medicine cabinet, check your daughter's wrists. Check the medicine cabinet, check your daughter's wrists. Boys and men use guns and ropes. They tend to shoot and they tend to hang. If you got a son who's suicidal, no ropes, no guns in the house. No ropes, no guns unless they locked up with the lock on the gun and a lock on the safe. Okay? Okay? Very, very important. And there's nothing worse than suicide and alcohol. There's nothing worse than suicide and Percocets. There's nothing worse than suicide and Xannies. There's nothing worse than suicide and marijuana. Be careful. If your child is a substance user or a drinker, if your child is a substance user or a drinker, you need to be careful, because under the influence of alcohol or narcotic, especially if you have a child who loves taking risks, those children will take their own life because they didn't think about it. Impulsive children. The worst thing you can have is an impulsive kid with suicidal thoughts. The worst thing you can have is an impulsive kid with suicidal thoughts. Marijuana is a problem with suicidal children too. Why is marijuana a problem? Because marijuana is a downer. It calms you down. And in calming you down, it can lead to you thinking more deeply about your problems. So even though you smoke weed to calm down, if you're suicidal, that weed can calm you down so low that now you're thinking even more deeply about taking your own life. No drugs are good when you're dealing with suicidality. The Rainbow Mayonnaise Militia is back. The Rainbow Mayonnaise Militia is back. See, I should be able to make a complaint with Instagram because I'm being sexually harassed. I am being sexually harassed by members of the Rainbow Mayonnaise Militia. I am being sexually harassed by members of the Rainbow Mayonnaise Militia. And I should be able to make a complaint. But because black men don't have no protections, because they have all been stolen by the white racist mayonnaise militia, there's nothing I can do about the fact I am being sexually harassed by sexually confused wildebeests. I am being sexually harassed by sexually confused wildebeests, and there's nothing I can do about it. We have to do something about the mayonnaise militia. We have to do something about the mayonnaise militia. Why do y'all even know who I am? How do y'all even know where I am? But let me get back on topic. Let me get back on topic. If I had a suicidal child, they are staying in the mental hospital that night. If my child was suicidal, they are not coming home that night. Because God forbid I fall asleep or I'm going to have to take a whole bunch of no-dos. There's no way I'm going to sleep in a house with a suicidal child. And that's why we have mental health hospitals. That's why we have mental health hospitals. That's why we have mental. I'm going to make a complaint that they are harassing my Instagram live. These damn ICE people, these wildebeests, okay? These rhesus monkey descendants, these descendants of the rhesus monkey, these white orangutans are sexually harassing me. The mayonnaise rainbow community should not be allowed to harass revolutionary Pan-African nationalists. We must put an end to this. We must put an end to this rhesus monkey revolution. This rhesus monkey revolution. Okay? This hillbilly harangue that they're having. This damn hillbilly harangue where they think they can just jump on my live feed and flood my chat with their Neanderthal ideology. Anyway, brothers and sisters, I just wanted to come on here and give you some food for thought for suicide. And black children are losing people who they love. If your child loses someone who they love, please get them some grief counseling. If your child loses someone they love, please get them some grief counseling. Do not think it's okay for a child to have to process grandmom's death. Yes, death is normal. Death is a part of life, but death is traumatizing for all of us. Get your daughter some grief counseling. Get your son some grief counseling. I don't care if they 3, 13, or 30. I don't care if they 3 years old, 13 years old, or 30. When people die that we care about, we need to process it. Make sure you get that child some grief therapy, because if you don't, they might start contemplating joining their ancestors. When a child loses someone they love, do not shrug it off. Do not think you could take them to Juma and Sunday prayer. Get them some professional help. Psychologist, counselor, social worker to work with that child. They might only need 5 or 6 sessions. They might only need 5 or 6 sessions. They might only need 5 or 6 sessions, brothers and sisters. But get them some grief counseling before they decide to join the ancestors. Okay? Now, what are the stages of grief? First, there's shock, denial, bargaining, acceptance, resolution. What are the 5 stages of shock of grief? Shock, denial, bargaining, acceptance, resolution. This can make people hate gay and white people. How is that? Oh, you mean by their behavior, not by my comments. Okay. Listen, if a whole bunch of white gorillas jump on my damn live, what do you want me to do? If a whole bunch of genetically deficient, melanin rejected white gorillas jump on my live, what do you want me to do? But anyway, brothers and sisters. Anyway, brothers and sisters. Anyway, brothers and sisters. We have to make sure we get counseling for our children. We have to get counseling for the children. Okay? 5 or 6 sessions, check in. If the counselor, psychologist, or social worker, therapist decide that the child needs more, you get more. 4 or 5 sessions to start, but you might need more. Too many black children are dealing with the loss of their loved ones. Let's wrap our arms around our babies. Let's wrap our gay intel pro. Yep. Homo intel pro. Let's wrap our arms around our children. Wrap our arms around our babies. And let's support them through their loss. Okay. I've never had that many wildebeests. I've never seen that many members of the mayonnaise community infiltrate my live at the same time. So clearly there's a concerted effort. And it's a shame that the Rainbow Gang can harass people, But if you say anything about them, your whole life gets thrown in the trash. They can harass people. They can disrespect people. But if you say one thing about the rainbow gangers, they shut your whole life down. That's why I'm going to say, shout out to Dave Chappelle. Shout out to Dave Chappelle. Shout out to Dave Chappelle. Shout out to Dave Chappelle for keeping it real. Brothers and sisters, more mayonnaise in the chat. More rainbow mayonnaise. More rainbow mayonnaise. More rainbow mayonnaise. But I'm going to conclude on this. We need to spend more time with our children. This is why we are renovating the Frederick Douglass Marcus Garvey Academy. This is why we are renovating the Frederick Douglass Marcus Garvey Academy, so African children have a safe space and a safe place to come. If they need to talk to somebody, we will be there. They need a break from their parents, we will be there. They need to get away for a while, we will be there. We will be a full-service African youth institution, the Frederick Douglass Marcus Garvey Academy. Please hit the Cash App. $FDMG School. Please hit the Cash App. $FDMG School. Please hit the PayPal. PayPal.me/FDMG Academy. Please hit the PayPal. PayPal.me/FDMG Academy. If you need to reach me, 215-989-9858. If you need to reach me, 215-989-9858. If you need to reach me, 215-989-9858. This is the Prince of Pan-Africanism. Good Garvey Day. Peace and Pan-Africanism.